Hi everyone, my name is Doug. I hope you know who I am. I'm the oldest son of my parents, Bernard and Barbara Weitzman. I'm sorry I'm not able to be there with you today, but I wanted to record this video message and I wanted to talk about some of the highlights that I had with my father over his amazing 94-year life. I know I wasn't there for all of them, but I do know a lot of things that my dad enjoyed with my mom prior to the family being born, and a lot of other amazing things that my dad has done over his career. The first things I know from my very, very early years is my dad was always working and encouraging me to do my very, very best. He helped me all through high school, and he encouraged me at my very first job at McDonald's. McDonald's taught me a lot of things. I know my parents know how I feel about that job, and it was my dad that kind of encouraged me to take it. And both of my parents, especially my dad, were there for me when I went to UCLA, and then I transferred to Berkeley. My dad drove up with me, and we stayed at Berkeley for a couple of days while I was trying to decide if I should go to that school or Stanford, or if I should just stay home with mom at UCLA. But I decided to go to Berkeley with my dad's encouragement. And some of the times when I was on break, I remember my dad got me a job at Universal Studios as a tour guide. I think that was probably one of the fun jobs I've ever had in my entire career, and I was so proud of my dad because when we were on the tour train with all those people, I would point up to the Black Tower and I'd say, "Hi Dad, how are you? How are you doing? You're up there in the Black Tower." He was there with Lou Wasserman and Jules Stein, and it was really, really a lot of fun. I was so proud of my dad during those years. I also remember one of the tours that I took my family on. My brother was on the tour, and I remember selecting him for all of the volunteer jobs that they had on the tour. I remember at that time it was very popular, The $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, and Star Trek, and I had my brother play in all of the parts that they had cast for audience members during the studio tour. I also remember that my dad was very instrumental in bringing I Love Lucy to the studio lot at the end of its run with Desilu. He brought the entire company, I thought, with him, and the Star Trek people. I remember many times while I was growing up, my dad would take me to Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's house in Beverly Hills, and I would play with their kids. And my dad was there most of the time, and my mom would come as well. And we'd go swimming in their pools. That was so exciting. It was just like they were normal people. I have one particular story about my dad. When he came to California, because it was so cold where he grew up at Springfield, Massachusetts, after the war, he couldn't wait to get over here because it was so cold over there. And the most interesting story was he decided to double date with his best friend, Lenny Horne. And Lenny Horne went out with my mom, and my dad went out with his eventual wife. And what was interesting is they decided to switch dates. And my dad then went out with my mom, and Lenny Horne went out with his future wife. And you know the rest. Both of those people were married for decades. And here it is, after that one switch, my dad stayed together with my mom for 66 years on that one switch. What a story. After he worked at Universal Studios, then he went to MGM and Lorimar, where again I was just so proud of him because Dallas and Knots Landing, those were major shows that were playing at that time. And my dad was very instrumental in putting that all together. And I remember we went to the studio and observed some of the shoots. What a lot of fun that was. I always remembered our trips to Hawaii and also to Catalina. Although my dad didn't love Catalina, my mom loved Catalina, and we'd go 3 or 4, maybe 5 times a year to Catalina on the Great White Steamship. And I remember my mom would go swimming all the time. She loved the beach, she loved the ocean. My dad liked to sit in the shade and read, and they would give me $1 to go play in the arcades. They got rid of me for the whole day, and I'd come back with $10 because when I played the machines, I always won, and I cashed out and got cash from my winnings. I also remember the trips that we took many, many times to the Hotel Coronado. My parents were married there, and my mom loved the Hotel Coronado. I think we went there a few times a year, and my mom always had her favorite place. I think my grandparents came with us a few times too. I remember that my parents all came to all of my graduations at Berkeley, at Southwestern, at USC. They were always there for me. They were there for my sister and my brother as well. My dad was really a huge sports fan. Boy, did he love sports. The Dodgers. I remember he had season tickets, and when mom couldn't go, he would take me. And I remember many, many times when I was very, very young, 8 or 9 or 10 years old at the stadium, my dad would say, "Hey, I don't want a hot dog. I want you to go up to the stadium club and I want you to go get the good food. Go get the good food. That's where the roast beef sandwiches and the good desserts were." So my dad would give me the money and I'd go through the catacombs of Dodger Stadium. I knew where every nook and cranny was in that place. And all the ushers got to know me because I was in areas I'm sure I wasn't supposed to be in. But they didn't mind. And my dad loved that food. I remember he gave me $10, which I thought was a lot of money at the time, 50 years ago, to go get that food. But my dad didn't care. My parents, my dad particularly, we played a lot of tennis. I remember when we bought a house in Westlake, and neither of my parents played tennis, and they had a game there called paddle tennis, and my mom took it up, and she was so good, and my mom and dad played paddle tennis there. That led us to the Sand and Sea Club, where we were their members for probably about 25 years. And my dad didn't play paddle tennis that much, but my mom did, but my dad was there and supporting all of us. I remember one particular year when we played in a tournament, and my mom and her partner were in the finals, and I was in the finals with another partner, and they beat us. Now, I didn't think my mom was that good, but she was just so proud and so happy, and my dad was right there encouraging my mom, and we lost the game. I wasn't happy, but boy, was I happy for them, and my mom had had the best experience there, and they celebrated. I particularly remember a wonderful trip that I took with my parents when it was time for my brother to graduate. I think that was 1994, 1995. We went up on the East Coast. We were at New Hampshire. We went up through Maine. We went to Kennebunkport, where the president had just retired, first President Bush. I arranged everything. We didn't really have computers at the time, but I was able to make phone calls. I set up all the bed and breakfast. 10-day trip, just my parents and myself, and it was just a lot of fun. That is probably one of the best trips I ever had in my entire life. One of the funnest things about that trip was my mom. Boy, she loved lobster. My dad made arrangements to make sure we had lobster for breakfast, lobster for lunch, lobster for dinner, 3 lobsters every single time. My mom couldn't get enough lobster, and what a deal, 3 for 10. 3 of the biggest lobsters you could get for $10. My mom just couldn't have enough, and my dad enjoyed lobster too. For that $10, you got 3 lobsters and 3 large pieces of corn. And I remember we had that every day, 3 times a day when we were up there. What a great trip that was. I also remember all of the years that we spent at least one day together, usually on Sundays, where we'd have Sunday's dinner. We had that for years, and I really, really enjoyed that. I enjoyed those times. Dad, I'm really going to miss you. You just didn't quite make it to 94. I'm taping this today on Rosh Hashanah 2017 for a Happy New Year. I hope you're in a really great place. I know you enjoyed your life for 66 years, married to my mom. I think you had three beautiful, accomplished children. I hope they've made you happy all that time. You had 6 to 10 grandchildren. Oh, sorry, not grandchildren, granddogs. I knew you had all the dachshunds. All of my life since I've been an adult, I've just had dachshunds, Oscar 1, Oscar 2, and now I have Oscar 3. You had hundreds and hundreds of friends that loved you. You had an illustrious career. You really did have a full life, and I thank you for being my dad. Thank you very much. I love you.